All right, good morning. I'm Aaron Heiser, Maker's Leather Supply, and today we're doing something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and that is we are updating an old video. Some years ago, we came out with the template for the original Maker's Dopp Kit, okay? Very simple template, very simple build, and back when I made the video for this, I used some very, very simple techniques because I'll be real honest with you guys, I'm still learning too. At the time that I made that video, the things I showed in that video were how I was doing my own leather work. And I look back on it now and I'm like, yeah, I shouldn't have been showing anybody anything at that level. Again, it was a successful project, and I know lots of folks have used that video to build Dopp kits, and they're great Dopp kits. There's no real problem with them by any means. But in the last 7 years, 8 years since I made that video, I personally have learned a lot. So here we are remaking the Dopp kit. It's the exact same template, it's the exact same pattern. What's different is how we build it, okay? And we get much cleaner, more professional results building them the way that we're gonna build it today, okay? So, what's new? One, we properly installed the zipper with stops and stuff like that. We didn't just sew through a zipper, but mostly the biggest thing is the liner. Okay, nice, clean, professional edges on the liner. Okay, look at that, professional. All the interior edges are bound. There's no naked edges inside. Okay, so while this might take 45 more minutes to make than it did before, the result is worth a lot more as far as a completed project and monetarily and things like that, okay? So we brought this back as the project box this month, but the template is always on our website. It's just the Maker's Dopp Kit template. And yeah, without further ado, guys, we're gonna build this bag right here. Like, the bag's already built. I'm just post-recording this section so that I can edit it into the video. Anyway, let's get to it, guys. All right, so the first thing we need to do is have all of our parts cut out and inventoried, and just make sure we've got everything. So we've got our main body piece for our Dopp kit right here. Big old huge, well, not too huge, but anyway, big old piece of leather. That's one of the great things about this kit is it doesn't have too many pieces. So yeah, you've got this big funny looking piece here. And then other than that, you need two, what I call the zipper support pieces that go on the tops here. They're the same length as the Dopp kit, and they're 3/4 of an inch wide. This piece right here is gonna end up being my handle at the end of the project, and it is 10 inches wide, or 10 inches long by about an inch wide. And then this little guy right here is a little zipper pull helper thingy. It'll be sewn into one end of the bag so you have something to grab when you zip the bag. On the other end is the handle, so that's what serves the purpose on that other side. Other than that, I need a piece of zipper that is the same length as my project. And this is YKK Everbright zipper. It's number 5. It's one that we sell here at Maker's that I've always really liked. It's a great zipper. So if we're using a zipper though, we also need a zipper slide and a bottom stop for our zippers, or for our zipper, and 2 little top stops for our zipper. Okay, and that's it. That's all it takes to build this project. Oh, I do have a piece of lining material here. This is Cordura fabric. You can get it from Sailrite. Hoping that we carry it here at Maker's at some point, but right now I get it at Sailrite. Cordura fabric, I love it. It does not fray. It's got some body to it, so it's easy to work with on my leather sewing machines. One of my favorite things about it is it's waterproof. Okay, so especially in a shave kit, waterproof could be an important feature. So yeah, it's waterproof, and then also it doesn't stretch at all. So it's really nice to use on some of these builds because it's when you're sewing it with leather, like it's not gonna stretch and skew and everything else. I mean, it just works. That being said, sometimes when I'm using it around rounded corners and stuff, when maybe I needed it to stretch a little bit, that can be a problem. But that's not a problem in this video because we don't do that. So anyway, here's all of our pieces, and the very first thing I'm going to start doing is finishing my edges on all of my veg tan pieces. All right. I did not mention, I'm sorry, this is an oil tan from SB Foot. It's very soft. A lot of their leathers are a little bit more rigid than this, a little bit more firm. But this one's kind of soft. But anyway, anything from 4 ounces up to 6 ounces, depending on temper. You want just something kind of medium to soft for this project. And then all these other little pieces are, I believe these are, yeah. These are bridle leathers from Wicked Craig, and so yeah, they are great leathers. They're about 6-7 ounce, I believe, and so matter of fact, I've got a gauge. I had to move it to make the video, so they are, boom, 6 ounces. So that's a good weight. I wouldn't go any heavier than 8 ounces for sure, but six is a nice ounce for your handle and your zipper support pieces and your little pull tabby, okay? So, we're gonna go over to the skiver, and I'm gonna skive just a few things on this. Now, if you got this kit as the project box, this leather is soft enough to not need to skive it. It will still sew together very beautifully, and you don't have to skive it if you don't have a skiver. So, don't worry, okay? But I am going to skive mine, and yeah. So we're gonna take the camera over to the skiver, and we're gonna skive all the edges on this main body piece. And then I'm also going to skive just a couple of things. I'm basically just gonna skive just the tips of these pieces, these zipper support pieces, so that they'll lay into the seam a little bit better, okay? Again, we're gonna do some different things on this video than we ever did on the very first video I did on this project, because I've learned a lot and I have a lot more experience now, and so therefore I have a lot more that I can show you to make a finer project. So here we go. All right, so here we are at the skiver. Sorry about all the shadows and stuff. I'm not moving all the camera stuff over here just for a minute of skiving. But again, I'm gonna skive just the tips of these little support pieces. Doing about a 1/2 inch wide skive on everything. And this leather's almost too soft. It doesn't even like to skive. So I'll tell you what, since it doesn't really like to skive, and I already skived that one area, I'm just gonna skive the 2 long sides of this, okay? But if this leather were a little bit more rigid and I went to skive everything, I would skive all these edges, okay? But the only ones I was really worried about were those top 2 anyway, so here we go. Continuing on, we'll go back to the bench. All right, so back over at the bench. I will say this about the skiving. Again, that leather is very soft and doesn't necessarily need the skiving. I was just gonna do it because, well, I make a lot of bags and I'm pretty used to skiving everything. Now, a note on the skiver, I said, oh, this is really soft, it's hard to skive. Now, I could have easily sharpened my blade and tuned it up better and, you know, got it going. And because I can skive any leather with that machine, that's the Cobra Class NP4 machine. But again, since I really don't need to skive this project anyway, I'm not worried about taking all the time to do that and everything. And that's why I was just like, all right, well, we'll just leave it unskived. And then you, as the viewer that may have received this kit, will also believe that I didn't bother skiving. All right, so I've got my veg pieces here, and I want to burnish all my edges on them so that they'll look nice and pretty. Okay, now these were all cut out with clicker dies, okay, giant cookie cutters basically. And the cool thing about that is it kind of rounds that top edge already when you cut them out with a clicker die, okay? But I still need to edge the bottom part, the bottom of it, okay? And that way I can have a prettier burnish on everything. So I'm just gonna run my edger around the bottoms of each of these. Now on the long pieces and on this piece even, I'm not worried about the ends, okay? Not worried about the ends, just around everything else, okay? So, run the edger down here, get these suckers done. This is a Berry King grooved edger that I'm using. It is a size 0. I used to think back in the day that when I edged something, I needed that edge to be completely round, and so I would use larger edges. On something like this, I'd probably use a 1, maybe even a 2. But I have since realized that no, I just need to knock the corner off that thing, and then I can get a really nice burnish, and it's going to look great. So I use a lot smaller edgers now than I used to. And for folks that are struggling with their edgers, one of the things I can tell you is watch the angle at which you're holding it. If you're holding it way up here, it's not cutting right. If you hold it way down low up against the leather, it just smoothly goes along and cuts. All right, now, to burnish all these edges, I'm gonna burnish one on the camera, and then I'll just burnish them all off the camera because you don't need to sit here and watch me burnish for 10 minutes. But I'm gonna use my super duper top secret concoction that's in this jar here, okay? I will never, ever, ever tell anybody what's in this concoction because I don't want y'all to know that it's just, you know, 1/3 Elmer's glue and 2/3 water. And yeah, it's a great burnishing solution, okay? I do like things like tokenol and stuff like that, don't get me wrong, but for just everyday burnishing on veg tan leathers, I use this little mixture, and it is definitely not 1/3 Elmer's glue and 2/3 water mixed in a jar, okay? For those of y'all that haven't picked up on it, that was heavy sarcasm, and that is 1/3 Elmer's glue and 2/3 water, okay? I suffer from a condition that allows me to pretty much only speak sarcastically. Okay, and then this is just a piece of heavy canvas, and I'm just gonna rub the crap out of it. There we go. So there's one side, nice and burnished, good and smooth, okay? We're gonna flip her over here and do the other side. Now with your water and Elmer's glue mixture, keep in mind that it will separate over time, so you have to shake the bottle up before use. All right, so I did the edges of this, but now I'm going to show you all this heavy canvas. One of my favorite things to do on bridle harness and veg tan leathers is just to go and also rub against the top corners, top edges of it a little bit. And a lot of the time you can get a really nice kind of antique-y look from doing it, but it also just really helps to round that edge and make that a nicer edge. Okay, with this particular leather, it doesn't seem to be turning the color very much. So it's not really antiquing it, but it's definitely making it a nicer rounded edge. All right, so I'm gonna do all those same things to these other 3 pieces, and when we come back, we'll start putting this bad boy together. Okay, so next it's time to work on our zipper. All right, so once again, this is another piece that in the first video, we just put a slide on it and we just sewed right through the edges of the zipper and everything. And well, since that video came out, I've gotten a little bit smarter. I've gotten a little bit less scared to do things. And so I need to show you all the proper way to do this zipper, okay? So, I need my zipper to be the same length as the leather, and that way it'll help me figure out, you know, what teeth to knock out and stuff like that. So the zipper's gonna end up along the long edge here, okay? And I'm just gonna lay it up here and make sure that we're about the same length here. And yeah, I am gonna cut it just a teeny tiny, maybe like 2 zipper teeth shorter. So give me just a second, I'll be right back. I'm gonna just cut that with a pair of scissors, but I don't have a pair of scissors right here where I'm sitting, so. All right, so we're back. I did just cut a teeny tiny bit off the end of the zipper here. Next thing I'm gonna do here is burn those edges a little bit just to keep them from fraying while I'm working, okay? All right, now, what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna start knocking teeth out of this zipper so that I can put stops on the top and the bottom. I say that, we're only gonna put the top stops on for now because we need to work some with this zipper separated, and then later we'll put the zipper together with a slide and put the bottom stops on as well. So what I like to do is I take a Sharpie marker here and I measure just a little more than ½ an inch, so about 5/8 of an inch, let's say, from the ends of the zipper, and I mark out some teeth. Okay, and I do that on both ends. And when it comes down to it, you're probably gonna be knocking out about 10 teeth total, 5 on each side, if you're using a number 5 zipper like this, okay? Now, to knock out my teeth, I'm going to use a metal anvil here. But then I have this handy dandy zipper tool remover tool here that we do have this at Makers. I love this tool. And it helps me to really expedite the knocking out of the teeth. Okay, so you just put it over the teeth there and give it a nice little solid whack. You don't want to hit it just crazy hard, just a nice solid whack. Okay. And the other thing though is all these little teeth just fall out, and now you've got tiny little sharp pieces of brass all over your workspace. So I am very, very, very cognizant of that, and I go back and clean off my work surface well so I don't mess up all my leather. Now, I said 5/8, but we probably should go about 3/4 of an inch because that's not enough. Once I put the stops on there, I need more room. So I'm gonna knock off a couple more teeth here. There we go. And basically this end is gonna be sewn into a seam later, but there needs to be a bottom stop on it, so there needs to be enough room for that, okay? All right, now we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other end. There's always that one stubborn tooth. There we go. All right. Now, I'm going to pause the camera right quick. I'm going to get all these tiny little pieces of brass off my workbench, and when I come back, we're going to separate the zipper and put the top stops on, but there's some things I want to talk about for that. All right, so I'm going to zoom way in on this zipper because I need to show you all something here. Okay? There we go. All right, as I peel apart this zipper, there's like little points on tops of the teeth, okay, on this particular type of zipper. Some zippers might be different than this one, but you see where each of these teeth has like a little point on the end that points up? Let me show you the other end just to see the other end. Focus. Please focus. Really? There we go. Now this is the other end, and those points are not pointing up because they're pointing down on this end, okay? So anyway, when we apply the slide to this zipper, we need to start at the end that where like if we're holding this zipper, we want those points pointing away from us as we put the slide on and push it away from us. So like with this side, with the points going down, this would be the end that I'm actually going to put the slide on later, okay? But right now, we're working with the other end where they are pointed up. And we're going to put top stops on that zipper, all right? So, top stops are the easy ones, all right? They're this little bitty, they look like a little brass Z, okay? Or nickel or whatever color you might be using. The ones I'm using today are brass, okay? So they're really easy. I take a pair of pliers and I put my little stop in there where the open end is facing out of the pliers. Okay, grab that zipper there and I just put it right north of that last tooth. Okay, right up against the last tooth. I squeeze the crap out of it. Sorry, we went out of focus again. We'll see if we can get back in. So there it is, right there, okay? And again, I just squeezed the living tar out of it. And it is now set. Okay? Now, I need to do the exact same thing right here. So, let's do that one more again. Okay, so once again, right above the last tooth, give it a nice little squeezy squeeze. And I mean, I squeeze the crap out of them. I don't want those things to move. Okay? Now, the other thing I do is I will take and look at the other end of this zipper, and you see how this side, the last tooth is the last tooth. This side has the next to the last tooth. Okay? I'm going to take a marker and I'm going to mark that last tooth, okay? And the reason I'm doing that is because later on, we're going to put this bag back together. We're about to separate this zipper. And when we put the bag back together, and this is the zipper back together, if I know that that tooth goes into the slide first, then I have a higher likelihood of it coming out just right. Okay, so I just marked that one lonesome little tooth there at the end. Okay, now we can separate our zipper. And now, especially since the stops are on one end here, let me get on camera. Since the stops are on one end here, we should have a lower likelihood of screwing it up, because if I accidentally sewed this bag together now, and this one side of the zipper was backwards and the other side was forwards, well, it's not going to zip together. Like, we're done. We have to disassemble everything and do it again. All right, so now that I've got my top stops put on, I am going to grab my main body here of my bag. All right, let me zoom out a little more if I can. There we go. Get all of it in one view here. And I'm going to take and put a piece of tape down both long ends of the bag where the zipper will be, okay? And just right on the very, very edge of the leather is where I want this, okay? Right on the very edge. I do not have a lot of room to play around, so I need this on the very, very, very edge. Earlier I noted that I didn't have scissors, and well, I need them now. So, give me a second. Okay. This tape, I've always found that it's easier to use scissors to cut it instead of trying to rip it and then getting everything askew and messed up and all that. So the first time I did the video on this bag, we had naked edges on the lining and stuff like that, and we're doing everything very much more professional now. So that's what we're doing here. More professional. All right, now my zipper, again, is the length of the fabric. I'm sorry, of the leather, okay? And what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna put each end of it, or each side of the zipper, right along that tape, okay? So I'm gonna remove the backing off my tape, and then just lay my zipper down on it. I have that terrible habit of chewing fingernails, and yeah, yesterday was one of those days, so I'm having a hard time getting the backing off my tape. When I do this, I want to make sure again that my top stops are both at the same end. I don't want one of them on my end and one of them on the end away from me. No, no, no. Okay, and I'm just laying this zipper right along the edge of the leather. It's gonna be beautiful. There we go. There's one. And here's the second one. All right, now we've got that like that, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna end up sewing all this together just like this. Okay, here's my liner. My liner is face down, okay? This leather's face up, my liner's face down. We're gonna go over to the sewing machine right quick, and we're gonna sew all this together. See where the skiver didn't do a good job over here? No problem, okay? Yeah, so easy peasy, we're just gonna stitch those down. And then we're gonna take these two pieces with us. We're gonna put some tape on the back of them first and take them with us, because the next thing we'll do is to get ready to sew them on. So we might as well have them over there with us. So our two zipper support pieces at the top, that'll be sewn at the top. Just put a piece of tape down the backs of them. Okay, and again, this is extremely different than the original build video on this thing, but it's gonna have much nicer results. And that's what we're all about, guys. Make it as nice as we can so that we can impress folks, we can have a very nice gift, we can make the most amount of money off of it, or whatever it is we're doing with it needs to be the best. Let's make it the best. Okay, I'm taking these 4 pieces over to the sewing machine. My main body, which has my zippers, my liner, and my 2 zipper support pieces. Those are all going to the sewing machine with me, and then we'll come back to the desk and do a little bit more. Okay, so we'll be over at the sewing machine next. All right, folks, so once again, my liner is oversized cut. Okay, it is larger than the leather piece. I didn't specifically mention that, even though I know you could see it in the video earlier, but it is larger than my leather piece, okay? And my leather, when I sew this together, my leather is face down and my liner is face up, okay? So that the finished sides are facing each other, all right? And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna stitch these 2 together about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch in from the edge for my seam allowance, okay? And I'm just holding you could clip the liner to it if you wanted to. I don't need to because I do this a lot, and I know that my liner is going to slide just fine on my sewing table here, my sewing machine table. But anyway, I'm going to just stitch this down. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. And then I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Okay, when I sew this, my presser foot, I can see it. It's right up against those zipper teeth, and that's exactly where I want it. Okay? And I failed to bring my tape over here with me. I'm gonna put some tape on this when we're done. Okay, get to the other end, do me a little back stitch action. Ka-chow. I just did one little back stitch because this is all going to be inside other seams later. Okay, so I just need it to hold together for a minute. All right, so there was one, but I need to flip it around and do the other side. Now, when I do this other side, I need to make sure that the leather the liner and the leather are both very flat against each other, okay? I don't want a wrinkle in either of them because I need them to be nice and smooth when I turn them right side out later, okay? And that's how we magically line this. Let me check my bobbin. That looks pretty curly. Yeah, we're good. Generally, the very first thing you do is check your bobbin, but I failed to do that. So I was just using this machine yesterday. I was pretty sure it was good to go. All right, I'm gonna do the exact same sew line on this side. Okay, so again, a little less than 1/2 inch, so 3/8 of an inch or so in from the edge. I want that presser foot right up against those zipper teeth. And stitchy stitch, stitchy stitch. Okay. Helps if you cut both threads, doesn't it? All right, so I'm going to zoom the camera out so you can see everything that I'm doing to the entire thing here. Then we'll zoom it back in before we sew some more. Okay, do a little repositioning here. All right, so there it is. Okay, there it is in all its glory. I need to grab my double-sided tape again, and I left it over on the other table, so I apologize for not stopping the video. All right, now, when I sewed those edges, I should have left just enough room for a piece of double-sided tape right there. How convenient. Just enough room. So basically I'm putting this double-sided tape right along the edge of my stitch. There we go. We'll spin her around and do it again. Now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors. Hopefully this tiny pair is sharp enough to do it. But I'm just going to cut off this excess liner. I only need ½ inch or so, or not even that. I mean, honestly, you could cut it even with the leather if you wanted. But I'm just going to cut off a bunch of excess liner here that I don't need on these two sewn edges. Hope my shoulder wasn't in the way of the video too much when I did that. All right. Now, the magic. Okay, what we're gonna do, this is now inside out. We need it right side out. So we're just gonna flip it, okay? So we'll just reach through there, grab the other side, pull it through. Ooh, so pretty. So pretty. Now, when you do it this way, you don't even need your zipper support pieces anymore, but I think they also look really nice. So, we're still using them, okay? Now, once I've pulled that right side out, I need to make sure that these seams fold down nicely, okay? So I want them folded all the way down up against my stitch line, okay? So once I've done that and kind of pre-folded that edge, I can reach in there and pull the backing off that tape and then set this down, roll this edge down up against the stickiness, and it'll do better, okay? And I just do this one side at a time. There's no reason to get the other side also like folded down and creased and all that before you stick this side, because this side will just unfold itself. So got it where it kind of knows where its crease is going to be. So now I'm going to take the backing off the tape, which can be an adventure depending on how well your tape sticks to your leather. There we go. All right, and then once again, I'm just going to create that hard crease and roll that leather down so that it fits on there nicely. Okay, and this is going to create a very fine, it's a nice top, but it also will create a very nice lining edge, okay? You don't have a naked edge of your liner in there anymore. All right, I'll show you that in just a moment. All right, got that nice and flat. Now, there's what the top looks like, and that's pretty. But there's what the bottom looks like, and that's dang pretty too, okay? Now, we'll do the exact same thing on the bottom, kind of pulling that liner back some, because we definitely want it to lay flat and have a nice crease to it. We don't want it to get caught in our zipper later, okay? So, lay it down, crease it a little bit, just get it used to being where it's supposed to be. Okay, Check that out. Now, let's do that again over here. So I need to pull my leather a little bit and get my crease set up. Get it used to folding where it needs to fold. Then we'll pull the back off the tape, and then we'll fold it down. Okay, crease her down. So pretty. Okay, and then once again, we'll pull it kind of straight and tight with each other so that that liner also creases where it needs to crease. Okay? Very nice. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is my zipper support pieces, and I'm going to lay them right up there to where they're pretty close to the edge of that fold. Okay, there's going to be a teeny tiny little bit of space there, but not much. And then sew them on. Okay? So, before I do that though, I'm gonna change the bobbin in my machine, and I'm gonna put black thread in my bobbin because my interior is now black. So if I use the natural thread on top and bottom, then I'll have white sew lines or natural colored sew lines inside the bag, and it just looks a lot nicer and cleaner if I put a black bobbin in there. So let me grab one. The next machine over has a black bobbin wound on it. I'm very fortunate, guys, to have all the sewing machines that I do. A lot of the time, they'll just be set up for different thread colors or sizes or whatever. And then I don't have to change machines mid-project to do stuff. So on some of the things I make, I'll be sewing half of it on this machine, and then I'll move over to the next machine because it has a different color of thread on it. All right. Now we'll have natural on top for a really great contrasting color stitch, but then the black on the bottom so that it doesn't stand out on the black liner of the bag. Okay? Now, again, I've got tape on this thing, and I'm just going to peel that off and put this right on the edge of my fold. And it is the same length as the leather, so it shouldn't be a problem. And I've just barely got it to where you can see that fold coming out from under there. And I think that that's a nice little, for lack of a better word, accent. I don't know. I just like that little bit of fold sticking out under there. It looks nice to me. Okay. Now, I'm going to sew it. Okay, and I'm going to sew right along the very, very edge of my support piece. And then I'm going to sew along the other edge of my support piece. Okay, and once again, I want to make sure that my liner has been pulled back and is out of the way. I don't want the liner to have unfolded itself under there some and gotten up under my zipper, because then the slide won't work as well as it needs to. Okay, so I'm just pulling really tight against the liner here, and I'm going to zoom back in on my sewing area so you can see where I'm actually sewing. Okay, here we go. It's so exciting. Okay, so I'll start out with a little back stitch action. then I'm going to go forward, and I am sewing right up along the very edge of the zipper support piece. Keep everything nice and straight. Be super cognizant about that liner being pulled out of the way underneath. Right. I probably should have looked to make sure my tension is perfect on the inside so that I don't have that natural top thread just poking out down there, but I guess that'll just be a nice surprise when we're done, huh? Now, I have sewn down that one side, but what I'm going to do is, now that I'm down here at the very, very, very end, I'm going to just sew across the bottom there because that'll be inside of another seam later, and that way I can sew up the other side of this thing, and basically I'm not having to cut and backstitch and all that stuff too much. Okay. Right. Now I'm just going to sew back up the other side. Now, a little hint with sewing, I like using contrasting color stitching. So if it's a dark leather, I like a light stitch or maybe even a colored stitch, okay? But if you're not that great at sewing with a machine and you're worried about your stitching being all wonky and crooked and stuff, then don't use a contrasting color stitch. Use a stitch that's about the same color as your leather, and that won't be a problem. Because it won't be seen, okay? I see a lot of people that try to use a contrasting color stitch, but their sewing skills aren't quite where they need to be for it. And so therefore, unfortunately, it really stands out when they make mistakes. And of course, we all make mistakes. We're all still learning stuff like that. But yeah, if you have a hard time keeping your stitch line straight, then you might want to use a thread that's the same color as your leather. Okay? All right. Now, I should have checked my bobbin because, like I said, I do have a little bit of natural stitch sticking out there. So I just tightened my top. Whew, the stutter's got me good today. My top tension just a tiny bit to see if that can help that. Now, I'm going to do all of that same stuff on the other side. I'm going to stick my support piece along my leather. I'm going to sew it down and sew around, and I don't need to do that on camera because I've taken enough of your time already, but it's the exact same as the one I just did. So when we come back, we'll be back at the desk, and we'll do a couple more things, and then we'll be back over here again. So here we go. All right, back over at the desk. Now, what we need to do now is trim our liner, these areas here, so that everything matches up. And I'm just going to use a little snap blade knife to do that. But my zipper ends, my liner, everything needs to be trimmed so that it's the same size as the leather. There we go. Okay. So we're just giving it a trim. All right, so you get the idea. We're just trimming everything down. Once again, I'm not gonna make you watch me do the whole thing, but basically if I look down at this, I should only see leather, I should not see liner, because the liner needs to be the same size underneath it. So we'll be back. All right, so now we've got our piece. It's got zippers on it. It is lined. Now, I have it setting with the top stops facing away from me because I need to put my zipper slide and my bottom stops on because we're gonna turn this thing now into a tube, and the next time it turns right side out will be when it's done, okay? So, fold the edges in here, got my zipper slide. Now remember, I marked one side of the bottom of this zipper because that would be the last tooth. So when I go to put my slide on, that'll be the first tooth that goes into my slide. And that way I might not have to jiggle it, wiggle it, and try to count teeth so much to get it zipped up right, okay? So, the only thing I don't like about this way is I can't use my fancy little zipper jig to hold everything together while I put a slide on, but that's okay. I've done thousands of zippers. I got this. Got it. All right, so the one that was marked is now the very first tooth in the zipper. So when I zip this thing completely up, it should match up pretty well. Go all the way to the bottom stops, okay? All right, here we go. Now, on the closed end down here, okay, we have to put our bottom stop of our zipper down here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring my anvil back out here, but I'm also gonna bring a piece of rubber back out here. Okay, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set that bottom stop right across the last, just past the last teeth of that zipper. Let me zoom in real good for you. Get this as close as we can here so that we can see it. All right, so I'm taking that bottom stop and I'm just putting it just past the last teeth on the zipper, okay? And notice I'm doing this with from the finished side down. Come on, buddy. Sometimes this can get tedious and I use my little pliers to hold it for me. And then I seem to do better. Okay, got it where I want it. I'm gonna push it down into that rubber a little bit. But then I'm gonna use my hammer and I'm gonna beat it down into the rubber. Okay. All right, sometimes I have to do this. My pliers, the leather is keeping me in the way of being able to really hit it with my hammer to get it down where I need it. So I'm gonna use my pliers as kind of an anvil, okay? I don't advocate for beating on tools too much, but here we are. Just place my pliers over it there. There we go. Now that stop is down into that rubber, okay? So I can pull it back out very carefully. And I'm going to go over here and lay it down on the hard anvil. And I'm going to bend those prongs with those pliers so that it stays where it belongs. There we go. Now, I'm going to do the exact same thing though, and I'm going to put these pliers across here and hit it with my hammer, and that will help set those little barbs down nice and flat like they need to be. Okay? And then just for good measure, let's do it on the other side too. There we go. Now, much like using a tie-down strap, I have to say, that's not going anywhere. All right, guys, so the next thing we need to do, our little pull tab is gonna go right here at that closed end down here. So let me find my little pull tab. I'll be right back, let me find it. All right, now, I've got my little zipper pull tab here, and I need to put it to where it's going to be inside one of the end seams here. But I'm going to put some double-sided tape on it so that it helps it kind of hold in position. So I'm going to put one on the flat edge here, on the front and on the back. The little zipper tab, by the way, is a great place to be able to put your maker's mark. Okay. I use my branding iron on mine, and my branding iron's just slightly wider than the piece is, but it's all right. So anyway, when I put this in here, okay, this bag is now, it's zipper up right this minute. Okay, I'm gonna slide it inside there, and I want face up when the zipper's up. Okay, and that way when I turn the bag right side out, everything will be right. Okay, and I'm gonna go ahead and remove the bottom of the tape. Slide it in there and then just place it right along the edge of the other leathers and get it as centered as I can. Okay, and this is in the closed end of the zipper, not the open end of the zipper. Okay? Closed end of the zipper. I need to move it over just a tiny bit. Didn't quite get it centered. Okay, then I'll remove the tape off the surface of it here and also stick it down there. Just like that. Now, I'm going to take my handle piece with me and I'm gonna go over to the sewing machine, and first thing we're gonna do is sew these ends closed, and then we're gonna box it and do our box seam with it, okay? So here we go. All right, I do have to admit to you, I did move over one sewing machine because this one has black thread on the top and bottom. And for all these interior seams, I would like to use my black thread. All right, so just going to sew across this end here, and I want to make sure that I'm sewing just at the base of that bottom stop for my zipper. Okay, so I'm gonna start out with a couple of back stitches. And then I'll go forward. I'll go real slow across the zipper area just to make sure I didn't misjudge it, and I don't want to accidentally just go full send and hit a zipper tooth. All right, got to the other ends. Now I'll do a couple of back stitches. There we go. Cut my threads. Spin the kit around and do the same thing on the other side. Now I'm going to unzip my zipper just a little bit to get it out of the way. And with the leather stretch and everything else, these aren't quite even anymore, but that's okay. I know exactly where I need to sew, which is basically where it goes right across just past those last zipper teeth. Okay? Ooh. Sewing machine got some oil on it. Every Friday, it's Saturday right now, every Friday we oil the machines before we go home. And yeah, so we are dripping some oil. All right, here we go. Same thing, a little bit of back stitch action. Gonna sew across that seam. Make very sure not to accidentally hit my zipper teeth as I go across. There we go. Get to the end, do some back stitching. Now, one more thing we're going to do to this is we're going to bind the edges a little bit so that you don't have this ugly naked edge sticking out of your on the inside of your project. Okay, so I'm going to grab, I've got some double fold bias tape over here, and I've gotten to the point that I buy this stuff like 100 yards at a time because we use a lot of it here now. Okay, so here it is. It's 1/2 inch wide, double fold, meaning that this thing started out really wide, and so it got folded once on each end and then folded again. All right, so it comes already that way, and the reason it does that is then you don't have naked edges on this either. Okay, and the great thing about this bias tape is it doesn't fray. So even the ends of it, it's okay to leave them without folding them over and stuff like that. So I just take this stuff then, wrap it around those end seams, and sew it on. Okay, let me trim that down just a tiny bit. Let me grab one of my big pair of scissors. Where those zipper or ends were a little uneven, I need to even them up. This SB foot leather does stretch pretty good, so that's how those got uneven. There we go. They're even now. All right, so I'm going to take my bias tape, put it on here, and sew it on as well. That'll help us to take care of that ugly edge. Okay. I don't try to do this with the original seam because I've already got enough stuff to worry about. Is it in position and is it where it needs to be? So I don't mind sewing once and then putting the bias tape on and sewing again. If you ever take apart a factory-made bag or backpack or something, you'll find out there's actually a ton of seams in there that you had no idea, but that was what they did, is they'd put two pieces together and then do something else and put another piece on there, and then they'd just cover it all with this bias tape, and so all you see is a nice pretty interior seam. Okay, but once again, we're going for professionalism here. I've made lots of these bags before I started using bias tape that I didn't put this on the inside. It is fine, don't get me wrong, but again, I want to show you the best thing we can show you, and here it is. Okay, got to the other end, do a little back stitch action. Cut my threads, and then I'll just trim my bias tape off and get it ready for the next seam, which will be the other end. So, why use bias tape? Here is one seam of the bag. there's the other. That's why we use the bias tape. So fresh and so clean, clean. All right, I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side here. And then when we come back, we'll start our box seams and actually assembling this, making this into the shape it needs to be. So I'm gonna pause this while I sew the bias tape on the other side and then be right back. Okay, so what we have now is this thing is laying flat. But I went ahead and clipped up the other side over here because it can be a bear. With those zipper support pieces, those are there to create real rigidity and help the bag hold its shape. And unfortunately, they do a really good job when you're clipping these sides up of not wanting it to be able to move or whatever, okay? So this end is the closed zipper end. That's the end I'm gonna do first because the open zipper end, it gets the handle. So I gotta put the handle in it when I go to sew that side together. But basically, okay, I'm gonna unclip this to show you what I've done here. Basically, I just take the corners and I pull them tight against each other, and then I just work some clips on there to get it nice and flat and straight, okay? And yeah, and again, it can be a bear. It really can, and that's why I did it off camera first, just so that the pieces would kind of find their place and get some for lack of a better word, memory to them. All right. So yeah. But now I'm just gonna take and sew down those two side seams. Okay. Now the end piece here where we did our binding, that folds towards the bottom of the bag, okay? You don't wanna fold that up toward the zipper. You want that piece to fold down toward the bottom of the bag, and that'll give it the shape it needs once it's finished. I probably should bring the camera to the other side of the machine because the bag itself is going to be in the way whilst I'm sewing. Okay, let me get my big mega light out of the way here. All right, and it really is just as simple as you would think to sew down these little side seams here. Okay, I just kind of crush the rest of the bag out of the way. Start up here on the top and just make sure everything stays aligned while I do it. And I'm going to sew these about a 3/8 or so of, dang it. Speaking of keeping it aligned, 3/8 of an inch or so seam allowance. I don't know why I got the stutters so bad today. Probably because I've got to get this done before we leave. Heading out to the NFR to work the Burns booth and maybe go to the rodeo one night, I don't know. All right, now I'm gonna sew this down. So I'll start out with a back stitch, get all my stuff out of the way. Start out with a back stitch, try to keep my shoulder out your way too much. Okay, now it's gonna have a real good time, the sewing machine, trying to get up over that center area where it's folded over itself, but we're just gonna make it do what we need it to do because this sewing machine's not my boss. Okay, it kind of is, but all right. So we're up on that center seam there. Now I'm gonna remove the bottom clip and we'll just keep on stitching. Get to the bottom, a couple of back stitches. There we go. Again, I'm using the dark thread on this seam, these seams, because I need it to, I don't want them to show up on the inside of the bag, okay? All right, now I'm just gonna flip it over and do the exact same stitch on the other side. This is one of those, when you use a more rigid leather, you can have a difficult time doing these box seams down here. But again, this is a very nice, very flexible leather, so we're not going to have these problems today. Okay, start out with a couple of back stitches. And forward we go. Get to that side seam, make sure it steps up over the bulk of it there. Sometimes I have to use my presser foot in conjunction with my treadle pedal, my go pedal on my machine to make sure everything goes through fine. And I apologize if my hands are in the way or anything, but I'm just sewing down these edges. Okay. And this is one of those projects, your first one's not going to be the best probably, but you'll figure out a lot as you go. Things that I can't think of how to explain or don't even realize that maybe I'm doing because I've just made so many of these daggum things. And stuff like that. But there's one end of the bag complete. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and since I'm on this end already, I'll put my I'm going to trim these off nice and flat. Put my binding my bias tape on them. Okay, and go ahead and bind these edges so that they look nice and clean. And when we, and I'm going to do that the exact same way I did this one here, okay? So I'm not going to bother doing it on the camera, but I'm going to go ahead and bind these two edges, and when we come back, we'll get over to the handle side, and I'll talk about putting the handle in it and then sewing those edges down. Okay, so now I got that side all nice and bound, okay? Nice and pretty. Now we are clipping up the other side, and basically I'm just going to clip up the top half of it for the time being because I have to put the handle in the bottom half. So I'm going to clip it up in the exact same manner, just pulling everything, getting it even, getting it nice, getting it how it needs to be, you know, all the things. All right, now we are at the point where the handle goes in, okay? So basically this handle is gonna be like this on the inside of the bag, and that way when we turn the bag out right, the handle will be like this, okay? Now the handle is a really nice, like this bridle, you can't tool on it and stuff like that, but if you're making one where these are vegetable tanned accents, you know, you could tool on this or put a name or initials. It's a great area to customize. In the same manner though, also you can do patches on the side of the bag, and that's also a really nice way and area to customize. See how tightly this thing's pulling because of these top supports? That's good, but it does help to get everything sewn together correctly. But when we turn it right side out, we'll work on its shape a little bit. Anyway, so the handle needs to go in one end and out the other. Okay, now this handle's 10 inches long, but generally I like to use it a little bit shorter. I like to cut it down a little bit, but I just cut it down after everything's sewn together, okay? Now I'm reaching in here with my other hand, my other finger, trying to fish it back out the other side, and it's not working too well. I could unzip the bag a little bit. Now, depending on what style of zippers you're using, you may want to unzip your bag before you sew these last corners. Okay, because once it is sewn here, this bag is now closed. And if you can't unzip it from the inside like this, then you need to go ahead and unzip it and give yourself some room. Okay, now these YKK Everbright zippers are a really nice zipper, and the slides that we sell are not locking slides, so I know I can easily unzip it while it's closed, okay? Now, I am going to just take this handle, and on this end, I'm just going to put it in kind of an arbitrary area and sew this one side down. And then I'll push enough handle through on the other side that I know that it's going to have a nice curvature to it, and you'd be able to get a hand on it. But we'll get to that point in just a moment. Okay. Now, I put the handle directly under where that fold over is. And that way the handle is not all the way down against the table when the bag sits, but it's also not like way up high, okay? So I basically want it just below the ends of the zipper. And so that's how I get it there. All right, enough talking. Let's get to sewing. So I'm just gonna fold this sucker over this way here. Of course, my thread wants to play with me and not let me pick it up. Okay, there we go. Now we're ready to sew. Start out with a couple of back stitches. And forward. We're going to walk up over that handle there, and then we're going to walk up over that side seam too. Okay, and then we're going to double check and make dang sure after we've sewn it that we got layers of lining plus layers of leather inside of our seam. Okay, very important that we don't accidentally sew just the liner together without any leather in it, right? All right. So again, I'm gonna cut this loose from the sewing machine, and then I'm gonna inspect it right quick and make sure that I got all my layers how they ought to be, and that there's stitching through all of them. Okay, now, the other side is already kind of clipped together, but I'm gonna take and push a couple of inches of handle back into the bag here. And then there's how I do it. There's about 2 inches sticking out on this side and about a ½ inch on this side. So overall, we're probably using about 8 inches of our 10-inch handle. And I can feel in there and I can feel where it is. And I think that's gonna be a good, excuse me, good length of handle left over for me, okay? All right. Now, same thing, other side. The reason that we cut the handle so long and then so a lot of it sticking out is because if we just cut it to length, then it would be very, very difficult to be able to control and see that it, you know, where it is and all that when we sew it all together. So I'd rather have handles sticking out than have to fight with it just barely being in the seams, you know? Okay. Then the same thing, we're going to check it and make sure that we got all of the layers that need to be in that stitch into that stitch. And then I'm going to trim it and bind these edges as well. So I've got all of my leather layers, all of my lining layers, everything is in the stitch, how and where it needs to be. So that's good. All right, so now I'm going to trim and bind these last 2 edges. And when we come back, we'll be over at the table again. We'll turn it right side out, and we'll see how we did. I like to call it the moment of truth. All right, so we'll be back in just a moment. All right, guys, here it is. It's all sewn together. All the edges are bound. yeah, now we're gonna turn it right side out and see if we did a good job. Let's hope. So I don't have time to reshoot this video, and it's gotta get posted before I leave. All right, so I unzip the bag, but I don't want to unzip it all the way to that bottom stop. I usually will leave it just a tiny bit shy of that because I don't like to stress my zipper too much right there, and turning this small bag right side out is going to stress things. And then I'll take and flip, just start at one end, flip everything right side out. Wasn't as bad as I thought. I've made these bags out of a lot more rigid materials, and yeah, they've been real fun to flip. Okay, I'm gonna take and push my corners out real good, kind of pre-fold all my edges down and everything. Same thing on the other end. Press my corners out real nicely. All right, zip her up right quick. All right, now what I'm gonna do is take and kind of pinch my zipper support pieces, kind of even with the corners of the bag, and that'll help to maintain a shape. All right, and there it is, folks. We have made a Dopp kit, also known as a shave kit. We've made a very nice shave kit, Dopp kit. And it is fully lined. With that lining, it's waterproof. Yeah, well, at least the insides are waterproof. This being an oil tan leather, it also is quite water resistant, but I wouldn't go as far as to say waterproof. So anyway, and then the good news is you look in there and it's nice and clean, and it doesn't have a bunch of naked edges showing and stuff like that. So again, I really wanted to update the video on this, and why not release it as one of our throwback project boxes while we were doing that update. So that's why this came about. You can get this template at makersleathersupply.com. You can get all the materials and tools, everything we used, minus the liner. I got that at sale right. Everything else came from Makers Leather Supply. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed the build. Hope you learned something most of all. Until next time, guys, I'm Aaron Heiser of Makers Leather Supply, and I hope you have a great day.